She said she was volunteering after work. Turns out she was sleeping with her yoga instructor for over a year. In our house, on our couch, she said I was too career-focused and she felt lonely. So I invited her parents, her instructor, and our neighbors for dinner, then played the security footage. She ran. They stayed. Last I saw her, she was packing her things in silence while her dad stared at the floor. I wasn't suspicious at first. Honestly, I admired it. Vanessa started volunteering at an animal shelter twice a week after work, Tuesdays and Thursdays. She said it helped her feel grounded, said she wanted to give back. I didn't argue. I figured it was good for her mental health. She'd had a rough patch at work, claimed her office was toxic, and needed something positive in her life. She used to come home by 6:30. Now it was closer to 9. I work from home. I'm a software developer. I'm not one of those guys constantly breathing down their partner's neck. We've lived together for 4 years, been dating for 5. I trusted her. Completely. The first weird moment was small. Our dog, Rex, always barked when anyone came near the front door, even neighbors he'd seen 100 times. But one Thursday night, I was in the kitchen reheating leftovers when I heard the door unlock. No knock. No bark. I walked to the hallway and saw Rex trotting to the door like he was expecting someone. It was Vanessa. She was in leggings and an oversized hoodie, hair up in a messy bun. Said she was tired. The shelter had a full intake of strays, and she'd been cleaning cages all evening. Then she took a quick shower, threw her clothes straight into the wash, and went to bed early. It could have been nothing, but something itched in the back of my head. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing little things. Her phone used to buzz on the counter constantly. Now it was always on silent, always face down. One time, I picked it up to check the time, and the lock screen had changed. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that guy, but I started watching more closely. Tuesdays and Thursdays, same pattern. She left work to help at the shelter, stayed out late, came home already tired. Sometimes she wouldn't eat at all. And our dog, who used to bark every time someone passed the window, was quiet, on edge. And when I really thought about it, the days she came home late were the same days she looked oddly cheerful, not exhausted, energized, even when she didn't say much. Still, I wasn't ready to accuse her. I needed something solid, something undeniable. So I installed a camera, just one, tucked discreetly into a new bookshelf I'd placed by the hallway, angled toward the living room. Our front door was in full view. I told myself it was for peace of mind, maybe to catch Rex chewing the couch cushions again. But I knew what I was really doing. I just wasn't ready to admit it. The following Tuesday, I stayed up late under the pretense of finishing a project. Vanessa had texted, "Shelter's hectic tonight. Don't wait up red hard." At 8:43 p.m., I heard footsteps outside. Not her footsteps. Heavier. Confident. Then the lock turned. The man who walked in wasn't me. Tall, lean, wearing joggers and a gym bag slung over one shoulder. I recognized him. Ryan, her yoga instructor. He walked in like he lived there, like he'd done it before. Rex didn't bark. Rex wagged his tail. I froze. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the hallway, too stunned to go out and confront anyone. Then I backed away. Quietly. Closed the door to my office. Locked it. I opened my laptop, pulled up the live feed from the hallway camera. It was recording. I watched him drop his bag, stretch, and toss his keys on the coffee table. A few minutes later, Vanessa came in from the back patio door, hair loose, laughing. I ended the feed. That night, I barely slept. My mind ran in loops. Anger, confusion, denial, humiliation. I went over every memory from the past year, trying to find the moment it started. Every little sign I'd ignored. Every lie I'd accepted. She wasn't volunteering. Not once. The next morning, I played dumb. She kissed me on the cheek and thanked me for letting her chase her passion. She smelled like eucalyptus oil and lavender. I told her I had a lot of work calls and would be locked in all day. She smiled and said she might stop by the shelter again later. I smiled back. That day, I ordered 2 more hidden cameras. One for the back patio, one for the bedroom. By Friday, all 3 cameras were installed and running. Discreet. Motion activated. One in the living room bookshelf, one angled from the bookshelf in the bedroom corner, and one on the patio. I told her I was reorganizing and testing home security options. She didn't ask questions. Why would she? She thought she was ahead of me. I didn't watch live anymore. I let the system auto-record. I didn't want to keep catching glimpses that might send me into a rage I couldn't control. I needed to be calm, careful, cold. Over the next 2 weeks, the footage stacked up. Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes even Sunday mornings. Always the same man. Same routine. Vanessa would leave for the shelter, but she wouldn't go far. A few minutes after I heard the car pull away, she'd sneak back in through the back patio door, and Ryan would be with her. They'd use the living room, the couch, the bathroom. One time the kitchen counter, right next to where I make coffee every morning. Then they'd nap together on the couch, legs tangled, while my dog lay peacefully at their feet. Rex had gotten used to him. It wasn't their first month. It wasn't even their first season. One video had a date stamp from last summer. They'd been doing this for over a year. That same video showed her trying on my hoodie. She laughed when he said it looked better on her. He kissed her neck while she wore it. She never looked that alive with me. I watched her throw her head back and say something I couldn't hear, but I didn't need to. I could tell what it was by the look in her eyes. Not once did I see guilt. Not once did she hesitate. In one recording, they sat on the couch drinking wine. She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. I couldn't see what it was, but he laughed. She said something that made him cover his face. Then they kissed. Later that night, I went through her texts. She'd changed her passcode again, but I already had the footage. I didn't need the words. I had the evidence in motion. I had every lie sealed in time, pixel by pixel. I didn't confront her. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Instead, I planned a dinner. I invited Vanessa's parents. Said we wanted to reconnect, maybe update them on some future plans. They hadn't been over in a while, partly because Vanessa said they were too controlling, partly because she didn't want to explain why she'd started dodging family events. Then I reached out to our neighbors, friendly, quiet people from across the street who'd known us since we moved in. I said I wanted to host a small dinner, thank them for always helping with Rex when we traveled. They agreed. Last, I messaged Ryan directly. I said Vanessa had planned a surprise for him, a dinner to thank him for supporting her fitness journey, that we were inviting people close to us, and she wanted him there without knowing she'd set it all up. I framed it perfectly, manipulated the tone just enough to make it sound sweet, low-key, and safe. He replied within minutes. Wow, that's really thoughtful. Count me in. I picked a Thursday, Vanessa's usual volunteering night. That morning, she kissed me goodbye like nothing had ever happened. Said she might grab drinks with her shelter co-workers after. They had a rough shift last week. I just nodded and smiled. By 6 p.m., the table was set. Lights dimmed. Music low. I'd made a full dinner. Pasta, grilled vegetables, garlic bread, her mom's favorite wine. At 6:45, her parents arrived. Then the neighbors. Then Ryan, wearing a blue button-down and carrying a bottle of wine. I opened the door and welcomed him in like we were old friends. He shook my hand and complimented the house. Vanessa walked in 5 minutes later and froze. I watched her eyes flick around the room. To her parents. To the neighbors. To Ryan. To me. She gave a nervous laugh and asked what was going on. I told her we'd all just wanted to come together and appreciate the people who mattered most in our lives. Her smile stayed frozen. Her eyes didn't. Dinner began. Awkward at first, then flowing. I kept conversation neutral. Work, pets, neighborhood stuff. Ryan chimed in like he belonged. Vanessa barely touched her food. She drank half a glass of wine in 10 minutes. By 7:40, I stood and said I had something to show everyone. Something personal. Something important. I walked over to the TV, plugged in the USB drive. Hit play. The living room camera footage filled the screen. Date stamped. Silent. Clear. There was Vanessa, walking in with Ryan. Laughing. Kissing. Pulling off her jacket. Tossing her keys onto the coffee table. Him pulling her into his lap. Then the video jumped to another day. The couch. The hoodie. The wine. The laughing. No one spoke. Vanessa tried to stand. I told her to sit. Her mother's face collapsed in on itself. Her father didn't blink. The neighbors looked down at their plates. Ryan went pale. He stood slowly. I could see his pulse in his neck. He looked at Vanessa, then at me, then at the door. No one moved. No one said a word. The living room footage still played, jumping between different dates, different positions, different angles. Same two people. Her and Ryan. Vanessa's shoulders curled forward like she was trying to fold herself out of existence. Her jaw clenched. Her hand gripped the edge of the table. But she didn't speak. Ryan stood next to the fireplace, wine bottle still dangling in one hand like he forgot he was holding it. His mouth opened a few times, but nothing came out. Vanessa's mother finally whispered something, barely audible, a broken sound of disbelief. Her father hadn't moved since the video started. He just stared at the screen, not blinking, not looking at her. The neighbors, Paul and Maria, were visibly uncomfortable, but stayed seated. Maria shook her head once and kept her gaze down. Paul looked at me with something between shock and pity. I paused the video. Vanessa looked up. Her face was pale, lips trembling slightly, but her voice, when it came, was oddly calm. She said she never meant for things to happen this way. She said I was always working, never present, and she felt lonely, unseen. That Ryan had been just a friend at first, someone who listened when she needed it. Then things escalated. One mistake became another, and she couldn't stop. I didn't respond. I just stood there, silent, letting the room sit in it. She asked me to turn the video off. Said it was humiliating. I told her I thought she already passed that point. Ryan finally spoke. Said he didn't know she was in a serious relationship. That he never would have come over if he'd known we were together. That he thought she and I had broken up. Lies, obviously. He'd parked in our driveway multiple times. I had footage of him using our guest bathroom, pouring himself drinks from our kitchen, feeding our dog. This wasn't a fling. This was a routine. Vanessa stood up too fast, knocking her chair back. She snapped at him, told him not to act innocent, told him to take some responsibility. Her voice cracked, sharp and loud, the first time anyone raised it. That's when her father finally spoke. He told her to sit down. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't angry, but it cut through the air like a blade. She froze, then slowly sat, face red, eyes on the floor. No one touched their food after that. The room was still. The smell of garlic and red wine lingered, heavy and unused. Then, in a low voice, Vanessa's mother asked how long it had been going on. Vanessa didn't answer. So I did. I said I had footage dating back at least a year. I said the earliest recording I had showed the same pattern. Same timing, same entry point, same behavior. I mentioned the change in phone passwords, the locked laundry basket, the new volunteering schedule that matched Ryan's studio hours. Vanessa's mother began to cry. Ryan said he needed to leave. I said the door was unlocked. He put the wine bottle on the mantel and walked out without another word. Vanessa didn't look at him. She just kept her eyes down. The door clicked shut behind him. Paul and Maria stood next. Paul gave a brief apology, to me, not her, and said they'd leave us to talk as a family. Maria followed, her hand gently squeezing my shoulder as they exited. The door shut again. Silence followed. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Her mother spoke again, barely above a whisper. She said she was ashamed. Said this wasn't how she raised her. Then she excused herself to the bathroom. Her father just sat there. Vanessa tried to explain herself again. Said it wasn't about love. That she just felt neglected. That I was too focused on success, on control, on never being emotionally available. That she stayed because she still cared, because we had history. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled a small box from the kitchen counter and set it in front of her. Inside was the engagement ring I had planned to give her the following month. Custom design. Platinum band. Sapphire in the center. Her favorite. I had scheduled a weekend getaway. Beachfront rental. Private chef. She stared at it, then looked up at me, face crumpling. I didn't flinch. Her father stood and pushed his chair in. He told her to gather her things. That they were leaving. That she could pack what she needed, and that they'd talk about the rest later. Vanessa tried to protest. Said she was staying. That she needed to work things out with me. Her father raised his hand, not to hit her, but to silence her. She backed down. No yelling. No final dramatic speech. Just the slow, choking collapse of everything she thought was secure. Vanessa didn't speak as she followed her father upstairs. I stayed in the dining room. Cleared the plates. Folded the napkins. The food was barely touched. The garlic bread had gone cold. The wine bottle dripped on the tablecloth. I cleaned without rushing. Every sound of the cutlery echoed through the hollow quiet they left behind. I could hear faint shuffling upstairs. Closet doors opening. Zippers. Drawers pulled too quickly. Her mother came back from the bathroom, eyes swollen but dry. She didn't speak to me, just sat down at the table, where her plate was still untouched. She sat like she was holding herself in place, hands folded on her lap, staring at the center of the table like if she moved, something would fall apart. I didn't interrupt. I didn't offer words of comfort. I had none to give. A few minutes later, Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs. She wasn't crying. She wasn't raging. She was just moving, mechanically, arms full of clothes. No suitcase, just an overnight bag she'd crammed full. Her father followed behind her, carrying a box. There was a single photo frame sticking out the top, the one of us on the beach from 2 summers ago. The one she'd insisted we frame and hang by the stairs. I didn't say anything as he passed me. She walked past slowly. Her steps were quiet. She didn't look up, didn't glance at me, didn't glance at her mother, just kept moving. Rex followed behind her, but stopped at the door. He looked up at me like he wasn't sure what was happening. I bent down and stroked his back. He sat beside me, tail motionless. Her mother stood and joined them at the door. She didn't say goodbye to me either, just held the door open. Vanessa hesitated. For a second, she looked like she wanted to speak, like some apology or plea might come tumbling out. But then her eyes dropped again, and she stepped outside. Her dad loaded the box into the back seat. Her mother closed the trunk. Vanessa got in without a word. They didn't slam the doors. They didn't peel off. They just drove away. Quiet. Slow. The only sound left in the house was the faint click of the clock in the kitchen and Rex's breathing beside me. I stood there for a while, not thinking, just standing. Still. I didn't call anyone. I didn't send any texts. I didn't go through the footage again. I didn't check on the guest bathroom where they'd used my towels. I didn't touch the couch. The silence was enough. Later that night, I heard a knock. I opened the door and found Paul from across the street. He handed me a Tupperware container and said Maria had packed some of the food from dinner in case I wanted it later. He didn't ask anything, just nodded and left. I left the container on the counter and walked back into the living room. The TV screen was still on the last frame of the footage. Her face frozen mid-laugh. Ryan's hand on her leg, my hoodie on her shoulders. I turned the screen off. I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed with Rex at my feet, staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and hum in the house. The next morning, the silence was louder than usual. By noon, her keys were in an envelope outside the door. No note, no message, no ring. I didn't ask for anything back. There was nothing I wanted from her anymore. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.